Welcome back to Sports Talk with the Byalls. Each week we'll discuss, debate, and answer tough questions in the sports world. During this week's show, we will recap everything that's going on in the sports world, including March Madness, the Masters, and more. UConn Huskies win back-to-back national championships for the first time since the 06-07 Florida Gators. UConn's dominant performance in the NCAA tournament was recapped off on Monday night with its win over Purdue. UConn in the last 12 NCAA tournament games has won all of them by 13+. Really impressive. And UConn has the highest margin of adjusted efficiency in the Ken Palm era since 2001. Austin, was this the most dominant team you've seen in a while in college basketball?
I would say it was. I mean, besides like some of these teams, I'd say that Villanova team in 2018 was pretty dominant as well. But, I mean, the stats don't lie with UConn. They had the biggest margin of victory out of every team since, I don't know, what was it, 2000? It's been a while.
Yeah, it was a long time.
Maybe even all time.
I think it was all
before
time.
Like the new era, if that's what people are counting on. But I definitely think it was the most dominant performance. They literally dominated every team and only trailed by for 4 minutes in the tournament. So
I think if people thought in that game coming up, the game Monday versus Purdue, that Purdue had a shot. I thought Purdue had a shot in that game, but you know, what were your overall thoughts and why UConn had success against Purdue and Zach Edey? Well,
going into that game, what happened in that game is what we said could possibly happen, and that was the guard play would get outplayed for Purdue, and they did. I mean, UConn absolutely just shut down Purdue shot making from the three, and we knew that couldn't happen, and we knew it was a possibility because if they're going to one-on-one Zach Edey and Klingon, then they're going to have the guards one-on-one, and we knew that every single player on that team was better than every guard on the team was better than Purdue's guards, and you know it's unfortunate, but when you can't hit a three and you only shoot 4 threes against UConn, you're not going to win a game. So,
yeah, I think with UConn, we talked about, like you said, one-on-one with Edey. You know, I think we've talked about maybe this year before on the show, but it's like, you know, would that be a factor, just letting Zach Edey go for 40 or whatever? Because after the game, I heard an interview with Klingon, and he said that, you know, our goal was to let Zach Edey go for 70, if it meant the other guys were going to score 0 points. And so that was their plan, was to let Zach Edey, go one-on-one and kind of just have Zach Edey beat himself, and it worked. I mean, you see that was 1-3, made 1 of 7 from the field. Braden Smith 3 in the first half, I believe. Fletcher Loyer finished with 0 points. Lance Jones 5, Braden Smith 12. So they only had 17 points from their guards.
And there was like a stretch in that game where Zach Edey didn't score. I think it was like probably 10 minutes. He just didn't score. He missed a lot of his shots, and that's when UConn started to pull away. So UConn knew going into that, like, he could score for most of the game, but if you go into a stretch where he doesn't score and the guards still aren't scoring, that's when UConn was going to pull away. And that's when they did during the end of that first half, going into the second half, when Zach Edey was not scoring at a high rate, which he did in the first half.
Yeah, I think he set out 33 seconds, 2 final 4 games. You know, it was crazy when the one possession they took him out on offense for offense and defense. UConn threw it right in the clean, gets an and one over Caleb first. So UConn wanted to get Klingon involved more. He only had 11 points, but you know, with Zach Edey, I thought North Carolina State did a really good job guarding Zach Edey in their first game. You know, they one-on-one them from behind, and they threw digs at him, and he picked up the ball and had to throw it to his guards. And I thought Purdue would have lost that game if NC State wouldn't have shot the ball like horribly like they did. And that's why NC State was winning the first couple of games in the tournament, because they were playing well on offense and defense. But you know, I think overall this tournament was exciting. I think this wasn't surprising that UConn and Purdue were in the championship game. I feel like it was kind of right for college basketball to have these two teams, probably the two best teams this year, in the championship game. You know, Austin, what were your overall thoughts on this year's tournament? Do you think it lived up to expectations or the expectations it had?
Yeah, I think it did live up to expectation. I was really bummed about Houston. I thought they could have definitely been in the Final Four, and I think it would have been more interesting to see Houston in there. Just it was really sad to see Shed get hurt and just absolutely ruined their chances of making the Final Four. So even to be able to won that game against Duke, it wouldn't have mattered. They weren't going to win without him down the stretch, and that was the only disappointing thing I think in the tournament. Otherwise, I think it was a pretty good tournament. A lot of people have been getting tired of the upsets, and we had 2 1-seeds in the national championship game this year, which is very good. So,
yeah, I think with March, you know, the casual fan loves seeing the underdog or the 11 seed like North Carolina State in the Final Four, and I think that's great. You know, I think it's fun for teams like that. But I enjoy seeing the best teams play for the most important games of the year, and I felt like we got that. You know, obviously sucked that North Carolina lost and Arizona lost. We didn't get to see that matchup. And then like teams like Houston, you mentioned, Shaggy got hurt, and the Marquette lost to NC State. But I feel like without those teams, like The tournament was, I mean, I would say not chalk, but it was chalk for the most part. You know, I think everyone expected maybe UConn Illinois matchup, and then everyone expected that Tennessee Purdue matchup or Purdue Creighton, and we got it. And so I think with March, I know everyone talks about parity, but you know, I feel like I think we said this on the show during the first week that we filled our bracket. It was like we felt like the top seeds were better than the 5 through 8 seeds. And I feel like it lived up to its hype. I mean, I think the tournament's always fun. You know, I think this was the most watched tournament in a long time. Records were breaking. Like 16 million people watched the Duke NC State game on Easter Sunday, and so that's good for college basketball. And then the women's game, you know, with South Carolina beating Iowa, that was the most watched women's game ever, and that's good to see people interacting with that game. Even though South Carolina, I don't want to say dominated, but one of the most dominant teams I've seen in women's basketball in a long time, and that was cool to watch this Sunday. But I think that would put a bow on the college basketball season. We can talk about it here coming up with the next year a little bit. So we'll get into that next year. Obviously, it's never too far away to pick next year. Everyone's looking already at the next year. They have 12 o'clock at midnight looking at how good their team's going to be next year with these way too early. And it's nearly impossible to pick these way too early top 25s just because with the portal and NIL and any more guys can decommit if you have a 5-star recruit in June. So Austin, even though we have a limited, but who's going to be who's your team you're looking forward to next year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably Kansas. I think Kansas can have a bounce back. If Dickinson comes back, which I think he's coming back.
I mean, I would say he's more likely to come back than go pro.
I think that'll be interesting. I think Duke will be interesting to see with all their top prospects coming in and just seeing how they fill out. And I really do think like teams like Marquette will be interesting. Like if Tyler Kolek doesn't go pro, we don't know. He hasn't said anything yet. People think he's going to go pro. I don't know. We'll see about what happens with him. I think that could be an interesting team as well. So a lot's going to happen. I mean, with like Arkansas, with Calipari leaving Kentucky, there's a lot of coaching changes that could make some more teams get on the map this year, and we'll just see how some of these programs. And UConn, hey, repeat. I think it would be shocking to me if they had a third national title in a row just because they lost everyone. And last year they brought back guys. They brought back guys on their starting roster. They're not going to bring back any guys from the starting lineup or even guys that played a lot on their roster. So
yeah, let's get into the Calipari incident real fast. So I think when we talked about when Kentucky lost to Oakland in the first round, we said I said I don't know about you, but I said that I don't think they should fire him, and they didn't fire him. Calipari left on his own terms. You know, Austin, with that situation, and I feel like he said it too. It's like they needed a new guy. Like eventually, like there was so much pressure built up on that situation now. Where if you would have got fired, you would have got $33 million or whatever it was, or whatever the Byall was. But he said he let that money go and got paid $8 million to go to Arkansas. But what were your overall thoughts on that situation? Do you think it was just new scenery and they need a new guy from kind of both situations?
I agree with what he did. I think it was just like he doesn't want to get fired. He knew the terms were bad and like just the pressure that he was having to get a win in the tournament and even go far because he was barely keeping his job, even though he had very high success earlier. So he just wanted to go out on his own terms. Because like he said in his video yesterday that he'll be a Kentucky fan for the rest of his life. Even after he retires, that will be his main team. It will be Kentucky. So he wants to be able to be welcomed back there, not by getting fired there, but by going on his own terms and just getting a new scenery. And I like coaches that, they want to get a new face in the program. They know that things have been struggling recently, so they'll give up their spot, and hopefully the program does well with whatever coach they get, which is going to be interesting to see who goes there.
Yeah, he said yesterday, Calipari, that it was a dream school and his dream job. And it'll be a dream job for someone to look at the names of Scott Drew, and obviously Kentucky said they'd offer Dan Hurley $12 million.
Yeah, leaving.
And I would be shocked if he left. Would be shocked if Dan Hurley left. But I would not be shocked if he left. The only reason he'd leave is if UConn did not extend him. And UConn would be very dumb with themselves not to give him $8 million this second for him to stay there. But you mentioned the three-peat. That was the first thing he said when they interviewed him. One of the first things he said was like, "We're looking for a three-peat." That dude is just motivated different, and
he's already on to the next.
Yeah, already on that. I wouldn't be surprised if you called a guy in the portal that night and said, "Come play for us." And who wouldn't say it? Who wouldn't say yes?
Yeah, like you said, now it's kind of hard to predict who's going to be good and who's going to be bad. So,
yeah.
UConn could get a bunch of guys in the portal, and then start next year, we'd be saying, "Hey, UConn could have a chance at a three-peat." Or some other team could get someone good.
Yeah, some names I want to bring up here. I don't want to say I'm looking for like they're going to be the best, but intriguing names. You mentioned Duke with their massive they have 4 or 5 stars coming in, with Cooper Flagg being the most known reclassified number 1 prospect out of Maine. Is a guy who is 6'11", probably would be the number 1 draft pick this year's draft and next year's draft. A guy who is elite defensively, elite with the ball in his hands. So it'd be interesting with Duke. But they did lose Mark Mitchell to the portal yesterday, and we're curious to see if Tyrese Proctor and then Jeremy Roach come back for them. Gonzaga revamped, bringing everyone back, bringing in Michael Ajayi from Pepperdine, who averaged 17 points. They should be good next year. You mentioned Kansas with Hunter Dickinson. They have a good recruiting class coming in, and then they already got 2 transfers. You mentioned UConn, see how they revamp. I think Purdue is interesting. Losing Zach Edey, I think everyone's always said, like, you watching that game. We're just watching that game, and I feel like it's been said multiple times through experts. It's like Zach Edey makes that team. Like, Zach Edey makes Braden Smith. Like, they set a ball screen. Braden Smith gets an open jump shot because of Zach Edey. And so it'll be interesting. I'm looking at these way too early. I had Purdue at 6. I don't know if I'd have Purdue at 6. Fletcher Lawyer didn't look like he was the player that we saw Fletcher Lawyer all season. A guy who lacks scoring on his own, has to get provided by other guys. But, I think Trey Koff and Rand will make a big step. And then I think, they have a good recruiting class coming with catchings and stuff like that. But we'll see. I mean, obviously, you mentioned some of the names who have big decisions, like Hunter Dickinson can come back, Caleb Love can come back, R.J. Davis can come back.
That would be big for North Carolina. If R.J. Davis comes back, they will definitely shoot up in their rankings and higher chance to win the national title next year for R.J. Davis.
Yeah, with North Carolina.
And Ingram. You got Ingram.
Yeah, obviously, disappointing season for the end of it for the Tar Heels. But they have a good recruiting class with Drake Powell and Ian Jackson coming in. And then we'll be curious to see how this. Seth Trimble entered the portal yesterday, which probably, in my opinion, means R.J. possibly is coming back with that news just because of the loaded backcourt there with Cadeau, Jackson, and R.J. He wanted to get his turn. And Seth Trimble's a great player, great defensive player. He'll be playing 35 minutes a game for another Power 5 school. He's just, with college basketball, I feel like so much anymore, it's everyone wants to see these guys who were originally recruited stay all these 4 years. It's not possible. You can't blame the player for leaving. They all have to play. They have to create a career for themselves sometime, and his career was going to be limited with all the guys possibly coming back and coming in. So I don't blame guys for transferring. It's just kind of what it is now with college basketball. We'll put a bow on the college basketball season. Maybe talk about in the upcoming weeks if someone big comes back. But overall, the college basketball year was fun. And this is kind of a big part of the sports now. There's a lot going on, and we'll get into that next segment. Going on right now is massive. The NBA playoffs are coming in. The play-in's coming up. The NHL playoffs are coming down to see who can get in. The Masters are this week. The NFL draft is coming up. MLB started. No, I think the thing we're first hit on is the NBA playoffs. The play-in starts, I believe, the 16th. If you don't know what the play-in is, the 9 and 10 seed play, 7 and 8 seed play. The winner of the 7 and 8 seed gets the 7 seed. The loser of that game plays the winner of the 9 and 10 seed. The winner of the 9 and 10 seed versus the loser of the 7 and 8 play. Winner of that gets the 8 seed. Yep. And it'll be interesting. There's a race right now for the last play-in spot in both conferences. Looking at it right now, with the East, the Boston Celtics have wrapped with the number 1 seed, dominant performance. Did lose last night to the Bucks, but doesn't take away from what they've done this year. A 14-point lead on the Bucks, 14-game lead on the Bucks. With the play-in spot, right now there's currently let me calculate this, 3-game difference between a 3 seed and 8 seed. And so that'll be a big talk about what's coming up, like how this gets separated. And with the Pacers, 76ers who were banged up this year with Joel Embiid missing multiple months with a torn meniscus. So it'll be interesting to see who gets that. I certainly want to be the Bucks and Celtics and seeing Joel Embiid in my first round matchup with the 76ers. And then with the West, we have the Timberwolves and Nuggets and Thunder battle out for the 1, 2, and 3 seed. I'm pretty sure that the Clippers and Mavericks are already locked up for the 4 and 5, so they'll be playing in the first round. And then the play-in spot with the West is the Pelicans, Suns, Kings, Lakers, and Warriors, 3 games apart to avoid the play-in. Likely probably going to be between the Pelicans and Suns there, who are separated by 1 game. But interesting with the Kings, Lakers, and Warriors, that one that's trying to get a double chance. Even if you lose 1 game, you still get another chance to get in the playoffs. The Warriors beating the Lakers last night, hitting 26 threes, 23 threes, shooting 63% from 3. The Warriors, Anthony Davis did not play last night. So the NBA will be exciting to watch. With the West, the West is just loaded. I wouldn't be shocked to see if the Warriors and Lakers made a run in the playoffs, and they're the 8-9 seed. With the young talent, with Ant Edwards, the number 1 seed, Timberwolves, with Jokic, Shea Gillis, Kawhi, Luka, Zion's in the playoffs now. Like, the West is just loaded. It'll be an exciting time. I know the NBA isn't for everyone, but I don't really watch the NBA a lot in the regular season. Obviously, I keep up with it and see what's going on, but NBA playoffs are fun to me. And Austin, I know you're a Suns fan and a KD fan. I enjoy watching multiple players, but how do you feel about the Suns this year? I know you're you're a guy who roots for the Suns, but then KD drops 50 and they lose in Game 7. You're like, oh, he dropped 50 points. That's not KD's fault. But how do you feel about the Suns this year?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This team, they're just so inconsistent. They've been playing well recently, and then last night they go out here and have like 6 points, down 30-6 to start the game. And I got on and checked the score, and I mean, it's ridiculous. Can't perform. And it was a big game, too, because they need to keep that 6th spot so they don't have to play an extra playing game and they get some rest. And it's crucial when you have older guys like Kevin Durant to get longer rests before the games start back up. But we'll see. I think they can definitely get the 6th seed. They have the advantage over the Pelicans because they beat them. So as long as they, they can win some games down the stretch, but they got a brutal schedule with playing all the top seeds, and they're all on the road the last 3 games. So hoping the Suns can pull it through, but if not, they're going to be probably a 7 seed.
I know the plane is newer. I think it's, 2nd or 3rd year this has been in here. Do you like the addition of the plane?
I do. I like it. I mean, some people don't like it, but the West this year is so loaded, and it would be sucked to see like Curry or LeBron or someone not make the tournament, even though I'd say the top – they're better than most of the teams in the East besides like the top 3. So
yeah, that's the thing that sucks with the West is that the Warriors are 44-35 who play a way tougher schedule in the West, and that would be almost a 6 seed in the East. Well, let alone if you give them the East schedule, they'd probably be a 3 or 4 seed.
Their conference is just,
the West is just loaded. Like I said, you could see the Warriors and Lakers making a run in the playoffs. It's just how good the West is. And I'm excited for this playoffs. I mentioned the young talent, and it'll be interesting to see like some of these young guys like Paulo and all these guys I mentioned earlier have some success and get a shot at the playoffs, and it'll be something that could grow the NBA.
I mean, like the division for the Suns, the Pacific Division is the Clippers, the Suns, the Kings, the Lakers, and the Warriors, all in one division. That's 4, 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the playoffs.
Yeah, all guaranteed to a good
all
spot.
Guaranteed to be in the playoffs. It's just crazy how loaded.
Plan, but we'll talk about the NBA coming up in the next couple weeks as the playoffs start soon. I think April 20th, and the play-in's the 16th. Let's move on to the NHL playoffs, who start the April 20th. Obviously, the NHL is not as big as some of the other sports, but it's still fun. The NHL is fun to watch during the playoffs. These guys put all season, and I know right now it's a battle for the wild card and the final seed in some of the divisions, with the Islanders trying to battle with the Penguins and Capitals to get in the playoffs, and with the Red Wings, and then with the Flyers. That'll be interesting. And then in the West, you have the Kings and the Knights battling with the. I would say, look at the points, the standings right now, those 2 teams would probably get in. So it'd be a battle for the East with 2 for the last spot, the 3 seed, and then in the Metro, and then with the wild card spot, the final wild card spot. So the NHL playoffs are fun to watch. Obviously, also our Penguins fans, Pigeons fans.
They got some big games.
They got some big games.
They played the Red Wings, Islanders, I think as well. So.
And then we mentioned earlier that the MLB underway. The season play 162 games. We're 10 games in, so I don't know how much you can take into that. But the Yankees are playing really, really well. If their pitching can hold up, they'll be good. And obviously, the Pirates are a young team. They're playing well. The Orioles are playing well.
Yeah, Zach's an Orioles fan. I'm a Cardinals fan. So.
And then people ask me, like, why are you an Orioles fan? I've been an Orioles fan since that's the first team I've ever liked in any sport was the Orioles. I liked them because of the old bird they had back in kindergarten or whatever. And the Orioles have sucked my whole life, basically, ever 2nd grade. And finally, they're good again. They were good last year, won 101 games, and then they should be pretty good this year. We also have the NFL draft coming up. That is April 25th and 27th. I think the draft is a big deal, and obviously every fan on draft night thinks they have the next stud at their position. You get a guy in the 27th pick. He's going to be the next Micah Parsons at the position, or he's going to be the next Justin Jefferson. Which this draft is pretty top. I would say it's pretty good throughout the first round. I think you'll be able to get guys, wide receiver teams who are wide receiver heavy. We'll get a wide receiver later who can get a starting receiver that can go in and be a top guy for them right away. Obviously, Diggs goes to Houston. The Bills will draft a receiver. That's a big part of the NFL and the AFC with the Bills. And then obviously with the quarterbacks, probably 5 or 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I'd be curious to see, obviously, Caleb Williams is going to probably go number 1 to the Bears. Yeah. I'd be curious to see where Washington, New England, the Giants, the Raiders, the Vikings, the Broncos, so whoever needs a quarterback, trade up and stuff like that for a quarterback with May, Daniels, Penix, McCarthy's making news, Bo Nix. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited for the NFL draft. And then obviously this weekend, the Masters. Obviously the Masters, everyone. I'm terrible at golf, and I would say I'm a casual golf fan. I watch all the main tours and stuff like that. But the Masters is always fun for me to watch. Tiger's in it this year. Everyone loves to see Tiger. obviously has to make the cut. But we'll make a prediction for the Masters. Austin, who do you have winning the Masters?
Yeah, I have Scotty Scheffler winning again. You were saying earlier with his percentage to win it's so crazy, the percentile it is for him to win. So
yeah, I believe the odds are plus 480 to win, or something the high 400s.
It's kind of hard to bet against him. I was thinking about doing Rory or something like that. But
Rory can't win big tournaments.
Yeah, but he can't win big tournaments. He always gets second or third. So if you had to bet who's going to get top 3, I put Rory in there. But yeah, I think we always Scotty to win this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the odds right now. It's loading on my phone, but this is one of the lowest, plus 450 to win. Scotty Scheffler to win. That is just insane. That's incredible in golf. To be plus 450, and then with Rory's and Rahm are plus 1100 to win. Those are the next 2 highest. But it'll be interesting to watch. I always love watching the Masters. You go sit down on Sunday and watch the final round and see who wins. Last year was Koepka and Rahm, and trying to remember the other. Was it maybe Rory? No, I don't think it was Rory. But those 2 guys were up there.
I think it was Hovland.
Hovland, yes. And so there's a lot of big names in golf. And obviously, with this event, with the Masters, Live Golf comes back into the play instead of just the PGA. So you get all the big names playing in it. And so it'll be fun to watch. Always fun to watch the golf and the Masters, how beautiful the scenery is and stuff like that. But I think that'll do it for today's show.
If you enjoyed this week's show, make sure to come back next week where we recap everything that's going on in the sports world. Remember, our show airs every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Now available on WJHS Studios.